Hello class, my name is David Dove and I'm here to share with you the research that I was able to do on Down syndrome. I definitely learned a lot by doing this, and I hope that I can share some information that you may not be familiar with or may not have heard, or misconceptions maybe about Down syndrome. So I hope you enjoy my presentation. So let's begin our journey. Down syndrome remains the most common chromosomal condition, genetic condition in the United States. Each year, about 6,000 babies born in the U.S. have Down syndrome. This means that Down syndrome occurs in about 1 out of every 7,000 births. Just to give you an idea of how common it truly is. Some of the physical features of Down syndrome, some that you may be aware of, some maybe not. A flattened face, especially in the bridge of the nose. Almond-shaped eyes that tend to slant upwards. A short neck. Small ears. A tongue that sometimes is enlarged and tends to stick out of the mouth. Small hands and feet. And a single line across the palm of the hand. Another physical feature that you maybe notice is our small pinky fingers that sometimes curve towards the thumb. There are a few different types of Down syndrome, which is something I didn't realize. One of them is called trisomy 21. About 95% of the cases of Down syndrome are trisomy 21. There's also translocation Down syndrome, which only accounts for about 3% of the total number of Down syndrome cases. And also mosaic Down syndrome. This accounts for approximately 2% of all Down syndrome. The extra chromosome 21 leads to the physical features and developmental challenges that occur among people with Down syndrome. Research shows that Down syndrome is caused by an extra chromosome, chromosome 21. But no one knows why Down syndrome truly occurs. One risk factor is a woman giving birth after the age of 35. Although the majority of cases of Down syndrome occur with mothers that give birth before age 35, mainly because there are more births before that age, before age 35. So that might give you a little bit of an idea. There are two types of tests that are available to detect Down syndrome during pregnancy. A screening test can tell a woman and her doctor the likelihood that there's a possibility she may have a child with Down syndrome. Screening tests don't provide an absolute diagnosis, but they're safer for the mother and the developing baby. Diagnostic tests can typically detect Down syndrome, but the test can be more risky for the mother as well as the baby. Screening tests often include a combination of a blood test, which measures the amount of various substances in the mother's blood, and an ultrasound, which creates a picture of the baby. Rarely, screening tests can give an abnormal result even when there's nothing wrong with the baby. Sometimes the test results are normal and yet they miss a problem that does not exist. Diagnostic tests tend to be performed after a positive screening to determine or confirm a Down syndrome diagnosis. Types of diagnostic tests include chorionic villus sampling, which examines material from the placenta, amniocentesis, which examines the amniotic fluid. The fluid is the sac surrounding the baby. And percutaneous umbilical blood sampling, which examines blood from the umbilical cord. Some people with Down syndrome might have one or more major birth defects or other medical problems. Some of the more common health problems among children with Down syndrome are hearing loss, sleep apnea, ear infections, eye disorders, and heart defects that tend to be present at birth. Down syndrome is a lifelong condition. Services early in life will often help children with Down syndrome improve their physical and intellectual abilities. Most of these services focus on helping the children with Down syndrome develop to their full potential. These services include speech, occupational, and physical therapy. And they are typically offered through early intervention programs in each state. There are a few national and global resources for families and individuals with Down syndrome. They include the National Association for Down Syndrome, Global Down Syndrome Foundation, National Down Syndrome Society, and the Down Syndrome Research Foundation. Down syndrome organizations, specifically in Maryland, that are local to us, that support Down syndrome and help families that are living through Down syndrome, are Down Syndrome Connection of Anne Arundel County, www.downsyndromeconnection.com, and the Chesapeake Down Syndrome Parent Group Incorporated, www.cdspg.org. I hope I provided you with some information that maybe you had never knew about Down syndrome, because I know I definitely learned a lot by doing all of this research. And I hope you have, this brings you some compassion for families or individuals that are going through Down syndrome, so you better understand, the things that they go through on a daily basis. And I appreciate you watching my presentation. Take care.